So now that we've gone over using if, else and else if statements, I'm now going to show you something relatively easy to do now that you understand how to create forms and how to do all this stuff. Now I'm going to show you how you can get values from HTML forms that you can then use your JavaScript to play around with. And it's really going to open up a whole new world of problem solving. So I hope you're excited to get on with this. So to begin with, I'm just going to create a form. So as you might remember from HTML, I used the form tag. So we don't really need to worry about any of this for now. So basically I can just remove all of that to make sure that it's not being complicated or anything like that. So the next thing I want to do is use the input tag. You might remember we use this for creating just standard input. So if I refresh this, you just get a box like this. Fantastic. So I'm just going to, I'm not going to make it fancy or anything. I'm just going to keep it really bare bones. I'm going to put above it, let's just say a paragraph, just to say, let's say, instruct you to put your name in there or something like that, right? Then I'm going to put in another one, and let's for this one put in your email address, and then we're going to add in another input. Type equals text, it's important. So then after our form, before we've used another input, you might remember from HTML. If you don't, then just ignore what I'm saying now. But what we were using before for buttons was we'd use the type submit. Sorry, one second, we do want to include the value. So we'd have submit. We would have, here we go, we have submit and then value equals, I don't know, click or something like that. So we'd have a nice button like this. Now, when we're playing around with JavaScript and stuff, we can just completely ignore that and we can stick with the buttons that we were doing before. So we've been using the button tag quite a lot, haven't we, for like, using onClick to call the functions and stuff like that. So for our forms, for now, all we need to use are these tags, the input ones. Make sure they're type text, and that's all good. So what we have so far is a very basic form. We have one that has name, one that has email. Now, what you guys, I'm sure, are dying to find out is how can we get those values that people put in and actually get them into our JavaScript and put them into variables or something like that. I'm just going to change that to click me. Okay, so first thing we need to do is create IDs for these guys. So then in our JavaScript, we have some way of accessing the different input types. So this first one I'm going to put just as ID equals name. I'm going to put name form, just so it's very discernible for you guys. Then I'm going to create another ID here. And for this one, I'm going to put it as email form. Fantastic. So now, just to test this out, what we can do is we can say, well, let's create this in a function so that we have to click that button. So let's call the function, and we'll put it here first, on click equals, and let's call the function something like return info. Then the empty brackets, of course. Okay, so we want to call our function return info. And it's been a few lectures since we've actually been creating functions, so let's revise this. First of all, we have to say that we're creating a function. So we just write the word function, and then we give the name of the function, which was return info, with empty brackets because we're not actually putting anything in there. Although actually we could put the ID name in there, but let's just leave it empty. Let's keep it very simple. So the first thing we can do is we can actually start getting the variable values. So we just create our variable. Let's call it name var is equal to, and this is where the fun stuff comes in. This is how we actually get it. So we do the standard thing of document.getElementById. It's very simple. So we want to get the ID. Let's go for name form. And then all we have to do is put dot value. Oops, outside those parentheses, dot value. And then let's just like alert that. So now, if we put something in here, it comes up here. Fantastic. So this may not look like much, but it's a super important thing. So we're now able to get what our users enter in, information, whatever it might be, and we're able to take that into our JavaScript, and now we're going to be able to do lots of fun stuff with it. So for example, let's change that from email to password. Let's change this ID to password. Let's call it passform. So now what's really interesting is that we could like say that we, outside of this function, we can create var correct name is equal to, I don't know, let's just call it John user, and then var correct password is equal to John123, which, by the way, isn't my password, so just so you know. So now what we can do is if we create another variable where so basically what I'm going to do here is I'm going to make it so that whatever the user types in here, it has to be, and the password, it has to be the same as this, otherwise I'll give them a message saying access denied or something like that. So I'm going to create another variable called name pass. So this will collect whatever the user has put into this password field. So in order to do that, we do what we did before using this dot value, which we've just learned how to do. So instead of name form, I think it's pass form dot value. Okay, so just to make sure this is all working, let's alert on both of these. Name var plus name pass, just to make sure it's all working correctly. My name is a password. Okay, interesting. So for some reason it's not returning the pass form. Let's make sure that's correct. Pass form. Okay, so now let's look at the console. So I'm doing Control-Shift-I to get up the developer's console. So let's add in the name here, then password here. Okay, so for some reason it's working now. Maybe I didn't refresh the page, but no need to use the developer's console. So now that we know that this is working, let's just make sure. I'm putting name in here, pass in here, name pass, fantastic. So now what we can do is we can now say if that's not the same as this, then we're going to say access denied. So we're going to use an if-else statement. So we can say if correct name is equal to, I like to write it out so it makes sense if you were to speak it out loud. So if the name they put in is equal to the correct name, and because we have to have the passwords the same as well, the name pass is equal to the correct pass. So if this happens, then let's say alert access granted, welcome. And then when they close that, actually no, before that alert appears, let's do something fun. Let's do document.body.style.background color is equal to, let's go for yellow, because that's a nice welcoming bright color. So that's what happens if they got the name and password correct. If they haven't got it correct, then let's do the same thing. This time let's have it as the gray would be good, and then access denied. Okay, so basically what I've put here is I've first of all created two variables, one saying the correct name and the correct password, and then I've managed to get the attempts of the user, so whatever they've entered into here. The way that I've been able to do that is because I gave each of those inputs an ID for both of the inputs here. So because they have an ID, I can use document.getElementById, then the name of that ID, and then .value. And so that gets whatever it is, whether it's a number or a string. And then I can say here, using that, I can start to play around with it with my JavaScript. And I can say, you know, if this is the correct, basically, then give them access, otherwise don't. So let's give it a try. Let's first of all put in the right thing. So John user, then John 1234. No, 123. Access granted. Welcome. Fantastic. Access has been granted. I'm very happy about that. Now let's try again. This time let's put in the wrong name. John attempt 1, because I'm some kind of hacker. And I can say John 0000. Access denied. Oh dear. Now I can't get in. Okay, fantastic. So this is just one thing you can do. I want to show you just one more thing that we could do that might be fun, and that's to create a calculator. And I'll do that in the next lecture. So I'll see you there.